I guess when it comes to sexual violence, it's more about a person's reputation or their family's reputation. And so if sexual violence were to happen to somebody and somebody were to disclose it, that person will lose their reputation. And then their reputation or their family's reputation is more important than their experience.
I'm the man, I'm gonna show you how to do this, you know? And I don't want you to do these things and these things and these things, right? Because I care about you, right? But once they do either of those things, or if anything at all, they judge you.
If we don't put ourselves in this and we don't speak out about it, then how do we help each other?
The way that people talk about sexual violence in my community is pretty non-existent.
Women will talk about their experiences, or in a very their sexual experiences, not just about sex, but their own experience, personal experiences to other women, not to men.
Because if we talk about it, it brings shame.
I think I would hear things like, oh, Misa Pung, or, you know, or going out la bib, like, so that means, Misa Pung means like a prostitute, or going out la bib means that, so she's a daughter that has no values or respect.
So one example that we always hear is the term "mall," which people use it to describe or define rape, whereas the literal definition of "mall" is to just roll around. And so when they use that term, you know, it doesn't really define sexual intercourse or, you know, whatever is happening. And so then that already puts a big barrier to explaining what sexual violence is in our Hmong community and how it happens.
So when I have seen and experienced sexual violence in my community, it's come in many forms, but usually it's perpetrated by a man.
Generally, in the case for the Hmong community, it's where it's older Hmong men who are going overseas and marrying or having relationships with underage girls, usually. So these are girls who are 13, 14, 15.
I would say it's the arranged marriage piece. And not to say that you know, that sexual violence always happens in there, but I think that piece is really big because there is a huge cultural responsibility that comes with that. You know, you're getting married because your parents found this person that they respect their family. It's all about the family status.
And that is one important facet of this, because most women, even though they're married and they think of it as a normal. Even if they say no doesn't mean no.
It's something to be proud of. You know, it's part of their ego. It boosts their masculinity. And so, you know, I think it doesn't really matter how it happens, right? It doesn't matter if it's rape. It doesn't matter if it's consensual. I think the fact is that it just matters that they've had sex.
If they talk about a sexual experience which was not up to their expectations, then they will call women names.
You know, if you're not a virgin or this and that you're used goods almost, right? So it's that mentality that something's wrong with you, that you're not as pristine anymore.
It seems they feel like sympathetic, maybe a little bit remorseful, but it doesn't feel like they're really supportive.
If it's sexual assault from of a Hmong woman, I would say the men that I see and hear the feelings is outrage and anger, especially if it's an interracial type of rape. How dare somebody from a different race commit this act against one of our sisters?
In the community, I feel like the people who points fingers the most are loved ones of victims. I think that they do it out of a place of love, but within our community and the way that we've always functioned as a culture is like really like based around victim blaming, kind of saying like, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you protect yourself, or I told you not to go do this, I told you not to talk to that person.
It's your fault for being raped. It's your fault for not protecting yourself.
And again, people constantly are talking about don't stay out too late. How are you going to defend yourself? Don't go to that neighborhood. Be careful who you hang out with. Don't drink too much. All of those things that we hear.
Hmong against Hmong type of thing where one of your cousins gets raped or whatever, it's much more like, oh, what did she do? Did she dress too provocative? And they feel less offense and less anger towards that.
Because, again, the burden is really placed on us to prevent those things from happening, when the reality is it's not our job and it's impossible for us to prevent it. That's not our role.
For me, I don't think that I've ever heard of men talking about sex in a healthy way.
I feel that sexual violence is something that we need to talk more about, and instead of just that person over there or reading about it or hearing about it in the news, that a lot of this stuff happens all around us, that we either just brush it off or disregard it, and we don't really talk about what it is and how it happens around us.
I really hope that men challenge themselves in my community to be brave and to start the conversations to end this.
As men, I think like we're able to connect more if more men just stood up and tried it.
You have to get over yourself in regards to like that's not what this other person wants, and you have to respect that. So even though you want something, you don't own this other person. You don't have control over this other person. You don't just get to decide what they do with their body.
I think we definitely should step in and not just let it happen. If we see somebody trying to carry somebody into the bedroom and we suspect or think that something might transpire, let's make sure that that person is okay.
I think it will take a long time to change attitudes, change the culture of the society. And when we talk about, that's the culture, talking about culture is a whole different story. So taking the pieces of culture that are really helpful and positive and negating the ones that are not.
They have to let us lead in ways that we want to fix our community.
When people look at our community, sometimes the Hmong community are like, they see this issue, they're just like, oh, look, like they have this big old issue. And it's all on them, but it's actually like, no, there's actually like many different communities and agents who are involved in that process.
They don't have to come in and say that they're experts and that they know how to fix our community, but providing some outsider's lens, right?
We get so stuck in this idea that these things only happen to women. And what we know is that they happen to everyone, unfortunately, no matter what their gender identity is. And I think we have to challenge those stereotypes and that prejudice that we have, right? And really change that, especially as a younger generation. A lot of these beliefs may be really deeply ingrained in our culture, and we have an opportunity now to change those things and to challenge those ideas and mentalities so that our culture can change.